Senate Majority Leader McConnell has signaled he may be willing to bring those stimulus checks up for a vote, but he tied them to two of the president's other priorities: curtailing protections for social media companies and investigating allegations of voter fraud in the 2020 election. If you tie those issues to the checks, they're unlikely to pass.
Here's what the Washington Post wrote. Especially wrong-headed is the progressive left, spearheaded by Senator Bernie Sanders, who depicts the $2,000 as aid to desperate Americans despite huge amounts destined for perfectly comfortable families. That's from the editors of the Washington Post. The Wall Street Journal, usually their opposite number, actually agrees. These non-targeted checks are unnecessary, and struggling households can access targeted support like expanded jobless benefits, food stamps, child care subsidies, and much more. The liberal economist Larry Summers, President Clinton's Treasury Secretary and President Obama's NEC director, says, quote, "There's no good economic argument for universal $2,000 checks at this moment." He points out the CARES Act and the brand new law will already have boosted overall household income relative to the economy back to its pre-pandemic levels, if not higher. If specific struggling households need still more help after the huge historic package that was just signed into law 4 days ago has taken effect, then what they will need is smart, targeted aid, not another fire hose of borrowed money that encompasses other people who are doing just fine. So in my view, colleagues like Senator Cornyn and Senator Toomey have pointed this out persuasively. But more broadly, here's the deal. The Senate is not going to split apart the three issues that President Trump linked together just because Democrats are afraid to address two of them. The Senate's not going to be bullied into rushing out more borrowed money into the hands of Democrat rich friends who don't need the help. We just approved almost $1 trillion in aid a few days ago. It struck a balance between broad support for all kinds of households and a lot more targeted relief for those who need help the most. We're going to stay smart, we're going to stay focused, and we're going to continue delivering on the needs for our nation.
Democratic Leader.
Now, Mr. President, I was prepared this afternoon to speak about the business the Senate must address, and I will do that. But first, I must respond to the recent announcement by the junior senator from Missouri that he intends to contest the certified votes of the Electoral College when Congress meets to count those votes next week. The process for electing American presidents is provided for in our Constitution and laws. The process has been followed fully, fairly. The results have been duly certified by the governors of the states, and they've been reviewed and confirmed by the courts many times over. The result is that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won the election by overwhelming margins in both the popular vote and electoral vote. The Biden-Harris ticket received more than 81 million votes, more than any ticket in American history. That was over 7 million more votes than Trump-Pence. The Biden-Harris ticket won the Electoral College 306-232, the very same total that President Trump called a landslide for himself then, just 4 years ago. Since the election process, President Trump and his acolytes have lost more than 50 lawsuits falsely claiming fraud or other irregularities in the conduct of the 2020 election, including a unanimous decision by the Supreme Court to dismiss a lawsuit brought by the Attorney General of Texas and more than half the Republican members of the House. And today we heard from the junior senator from Missouri that he intends to object to election results, particularly in Pennsylvania, a state where the Trump campaign and its allies have brought no fewer than 13 lawsuits and lost every single one, many with Republican judges ruling. There have been only 3 individuals, 3, charged with voter fraud in Pennsylvania, and in each case, the person voted for Trump. The effort by the sitting President of the United States to overturn the results is patently undemocratic. The effort by others to amplify and burnish his ludicrous claims of fraud is equally revolting. This is America. We have elections, we have results, we make arguments based on the fact and reason, not conspiracy and fantasy. On January 6th, the Congress will meet to formally recognize the Electoral College result. There is a very clear process to handle and dispense with objections from members of Congress to the counting of the result, and that's just what we'll do, dispense with them. The Congress will ratify the Electoral College's decision that Joe Biden will be president and Kamala Harris will be vice president on January 6th. And make no mistake about it, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be sworn in as president and vice president on January 20th. Now, let me return to the matters at hand. Today, the Senate will begin the process of overriding the president's veto on the annual defense bill. The House has already overridden the veto by a comfortable margin. I expect the Senate to follow suit and enact the NDAA into law over President Trump's evolving and ridiculous objections. Congress has passed the annual defense bill for 59 years in a row. It's an important opportunity to ensure our defense and security policies reflect the evolving challenges of our world and provide our service members and their families, as well as the Defense Department civilians, the support, resource, and training they need. The particular legislation includes a pay raise for troops, provisions that will allow the executive branch to be better postured and identify breaches to American cybersecurity, and in the wake of the SolarWinds hack, that might be a good policy to enact. Nonetheless, President Trump vetoed this legislation because it provides for renaming military installations that honor Confederate military leaders, or maybe because it doesn't address an unrelated social media issue. Think about it for a moment. The president vetoed a pay raise to living American soldiers in order to defend the honor of dead Confederate traitors. Well, the Senate will soon have an opportunity to override the president's objection and do right by those brave Americans who wear the uniform. Now, as I said yesterday, there are two major issues before the Senate right now: the annual defense bill and the vital and important effort to send $2,000 stimulus checks to American families. There are only a few days left in this session, and the Senate should consider both issues before adjourning. There's a very simple solution to this dilemma. Leader McConnell should bring both measures up for a vote and let the chips fall where they may. I believe both measures, the defense override and the $2,000 checks to American families, will both pass. But at the very least, the Senate deserves the opportunity for an up or down vote on increasing the individual payments to the American people. So at the end of my remarks, I will ask the Senate to set a time tonight for a vote on the House bill to provide $2,000 checks. The Republican leader objected to a similar request I made yesterday, and it appears he may be considering a different bill that packages stimulus checks with other unrelated and partisan policies. So I want to be very clear about one thing. There is no other game in town beside the House bill. The only way to get to the American people the $2,000 checks they deserve and need is to pass the House bill and pass it now. The House is recessed for the year. Any modification or addition to the House bill cannot become law before the end of this Congress. It's a way to kill the bill. Make no mistake about it. Either the Senate takes up and passes the House bill, or struggling American families will not get $2,000 checks during the worst economic crisis in 75 years. Over the past few days, the idea of increasing direct payments to the American people has united folks from all points of the political spectrum. And I salute the senator from Vermont for the good job he has done in bringing this forward to the American people's attention. An overwhelming bipartisan majority in the House supports the $2,000 checks. Senate Democrats strongly support these 2,000 checks. And our unlikely ally, President Trump, this morning tweeted, 2,000 ASAP. For once, Democrats agree with something on President Trump's Twitter feed. Let's send $2,000 ASAP to working Americans who are facing the hardest and darkest days of the pandemic. After all the insanity that Senate Republicans have tolerated from President Trump, his attacks on the rule of law and independent judiciary, the conduct that led to his impeachment, is this where Senate Republicans are going to draw the line? $2,000 checks to the American people? That is a bridge too far? Please. For the awareness of my colleagues, we can have this vote tonight and send the bill directly to the President's desk for signature. We can vote on the NDAA bill tonight and finish the Senate's business before the end of the year. All it takes is our Republican colleagues consenting to a simple vote on the House bill to provide $2,000 checks to the American people. Yes or no? Up or down? Do you support sending $2,000 to the American people or not? Let's have the vote. And so, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of H.R. 9051, a bill received from the House to increase recovery rebate amounts to $2,000 for individuals, that the bill be read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Object.
Objection is heard.
I want to concur with what Senator Schumer said. And what he said goes beyond economics. It goes beyond the desperation that tens of millions of working families are facing. It goes beyond the struggles of the people of Vermont or Kentucky. And let me just make it clear for the majority leader that 10 out of the poorest 25 counties in the United States of America are located in Kentucky. So maybe my colleague, the majority leader, might want to get on the phone and start talking to working families in Kentucky and find out how they feel about the need for immediate help in terms of a $2,000 check per adult. And I have the strong feeling that the people of Kentucky will respond no differently than the people of Vermont or New York. This last poll that I saw had 78% of the American people saying that they wanted and needed that type of help. But this discussion, frankly, is not just about the economic struggling of working families in this country. It's not just the massive levels of income and wealth inequality. It's about basic democracy. Now, what we have to do here on the floor, whether it's Senator Schumer or Senator McConnell or me, We got to talk in legalese. That's the language of the United States Senate, and the stuff sounds pretty complicated to the average person. But all that Senator Schumer and I are asking of the majority leader is a very simple request. Allow the members of the United States Senate to cast a vote. If you want to vote against $2,000 checks for people in your state, vote against it. I see Senator Toomey here. He has been clear about it. I suspect he will vote against it. I respect his opinion. But all that we are asking for is a vote. What is the problem? In the House, over 2/3 of the members of that body, including 44 Republicans, voted to say that at this time of economic desperation, working families deserve help and they deserve a $2,000 check. And as Senator Schumer just indicated, we have a very unlikely ally in President Trump. Nobody here has disagreed with Trump more times than I have. And yet here is what the leader of the Republican Party says. He says $2,000 ASAP. So even on this issue, amazingly enough, the President of the United States is right. So what all of this comes down to, my fellow Americans, is not even whether you agree with Senator Schumer and myself and 78% of the American people, or you agree with Senator McConnell, and I suspect Senator Toomey, that's fine. It's called democracy. We have differences of opinion. All that I am asking is give us a vote. What's the problem? Allow the United States senators to cast the vote as to whether or not they are for the $2,000 check or whether they're against it. We will need, as I understand it, 60 votes to win. That's a big hurdle. I don't know that we're going to win. There are a number of Republicans, to their credit, who have said they're ready to vote for it. I suspect there may be more, when given the opportunity, who will vote for it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we will lose. I think that would be unfortunate. But all that I am asking for right now is give us the opportunity to vote. What is the problem with that? So, Mr. President, with that, I will now go to Senate legalese and say, quote, I ask unanimous consent that at 11:30 a.m. on Thursday, December 31st, the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of H.R. 9051 to provide a $2,000 direct payment to the working class, that the bill be considered, read a third time, and the Senate vote on passage of the bill without intervening action or debate. Further, that if passed, the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table. Further, that immediately following the vote on H.R. 9051, the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of the veto message on H.R. 6395, that the Senate immediately vote on passage.
What did he say?
I'm reserving the right to object. Let me start by pointing out, we are not in the same place that we were in back in March. Our economy is in nothing like the situation we faced during a moment in March when this body came together and voted unanimously, I believe, for the most extraordinary aid package, financial stimulus bill, however you care to characterize it, in the history of the world, by far. Remember, where we were was we had closed down the economy. To a very large degree, the American economy had stopped functioning because state governments around the country decided they had to close it down. We can discuss, we can argue about whether that was a good decision or not, but given the limited knowledge we had about the nature of the COVID-19 threat, it was deemed to be the right thing to do. So we were on the verge of having no economy. That's never happened before in our history. So what did we do? We decided this calls for extraordinary measures, And we would try to use federal dollars as a substitute for the economy, just replace lost income on a massive, unprecedented scale. And we did. Almost $3 trillion we approved in that legislation. At the time, we included $1,200 per person. You could make an argument that that was an extremely inefficient use of those $1,200 per person, but at the time, given the circumstances, I understood why we didn't have many good options, and that was something we decided to do. So where are we now? We're in a very different place. Our economy is not in a free fall. Our economy is in a recovery mode. We're not back to where we want to end up. We're not back to where we were before March, but we've taken big steps in that direction. The economy grew at 33% last quarter. 33%. That's a tremendous recovery that is underway. More than half of all the people who lost their jobs earlier this year have regained their jobs. So we're not finished yet, but that's a huge step along the way. And now we're being told, after passing another extraordinary bill, this one almost $1 trillion, and including $600 per person, that that's not enough. We need to do $2,000 per person, despite the fact that we know for sure, we know for a fact, that the large majority of those checks are going to go to people who had no lost income. How does that make any sense at all, Mr. President? We know for sure that the majority of these people had no lost income. They didn't lose their jobs. And yet we're going to send them not $600, not the $1,200, but $2,000. So think about this. A married couple who both are working and have 2 kids, maybe they work for the federal government like 2 million odd people do. Maybe they work for a large company, the vast majority of which did not have large numbers of layoffs. So this 2-child, 2-income couple that makes 6 figures had no interruption, no diminishment of their income whatsoever. They're going to get $8,000 of money we don't have that is going to be either borrowed or printed. That's what it's all going to come down to. Mr. President, there are people who are still suffering from the economic fallout of this terrible COVID crisis. There's no question about it. We know there are people who are concentrated in a handful of industry for the most part, not exclusively, but people who have worked in the restaurant industry, people who worked for hotels, travel, entertainment. So many of those people are still out of work, and their prospects of getting their old jobs back are not good in the short run. I sure hope they'll be good in the medium-term run, if not sooner. And our bill addressed that. It addressed that problem. How do we do that? With a new round of PPP loans, which are really grants to small businesses if they'll keep their workforce intact. Expansion of unemployment insurance benefits so that people who have historically been ineligible remain eligible so they can continue to collect unemployment benefits. An increase in the amount of unemployment benefits. A $300 a week overlay of federal money on top of whatever their state program is. $600 per person regardless of whether they lost income. All of that was passed just a few days ago. And now we're told we need to come back immediately right now and make sure that we're sending $2,000 checks to people who had no lost income. So for that reason, Mr. President, I object.
Direct payments to the American people. This could lead to a showdown on the Senate floor come Friday. And, you know, we already saw people like Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer come out against McConnell's attempt to package all of these together, claiming that McConnell is trying to poison the bill because he is against expanding spending right now.
Death wish. He's also going after Republicans for refusing to support his baseless claims of voter fraud. It seems like the president's kind of putting his party in a jam. You have Mitch McConnell who's listening to him, but the president's not going to be there in the new Congress. Mitch McConnell is. So what is he doing to the party?
Yeah, it's really unclear what the president's, desired outcome is right now, other than the immediate result, which is being at the center of media coverage, and, you know, trying to ultimately get what he wants. There is some speculation that because there are prominent Republicans who have not supported his claims of election fraud, that this is the president essentially continuing and extending, throwing his temper tantrum at the expense of the American people by throwing a wrench into stimulus talks. And then, you know, we also have sources telling us that this is a president who watches cable news. He's been playing golf and watching cable news during his time in Palm Beach, Florida. And he has enjoyed seeing the positive media coverage coming out of this pushing for the $2,000 stimulus checks because Americans are in need at the moment. Unfortunately, it has come at the expense of the American people, and you've got to wonder why this president wasn't more invested and involved in negotiations leading up to it, and why Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin had been previously and consistently pushing for $600 checks. So, you know, this president is certainly going out January 6th, January 20th. January 6th would be when the Senate will, and Vice President Mike Pence will confirm that Joe Biden is the winner of the Electoral College and the incoming president. And this president is certainly going out as he came in, with a lot of media coverage soaking up all of the oxygen in the air.
And something I want to get to real quick. During his first run for office, then candidate Trump ran on eliminating the national debt. And here's actually what he told our Nora O'Donnell about that in June 2016. Take a listen.
The current plan that you've put forward, independent economic analysts have looked at it and said that it would add $30 trillion to the deficit because you're going to reduce taxes. You're not going to cut entitlements. There's some questions about whether
we're going to bring back jobs. I'm going to bring back businesses. We're going to have a lot of people come into our country. We're going to have people come into our country. Look,
how do you do
companies
that?
now are leaving the United States, corporate inversion. They're leaving the United States. We have almost $5 trillion sitting out there where they can't get the money back. They can't bring it in because there's no mechanism to bring it back in, and the tax is so high. For the country, we have $19 trillion in debt. It's going to be very soon 21 trillion, not billion, $21 trillion in debt. And I will tell you, we are sitting on a time bomb, and Hillary Clinton doesn't have a clue. And President Obama has pretty much doubled the debt since he's been in office. And somebody's going to pay a big price. We have to start chopping that debt down.